Hello ghouls and goblins, welcome back and welcome to my very overly ambitious November TBR. This is gonna be a month, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it is going to be a month because two reasons, well, multiple reasons. First reason is we're playing TBR Bluff and a lot of things are covered on that board and that is terrifying. The second reason is there are two readathons, one that I'm going to participate in a little more fully just simply because it's going to be really easy to do and I'll explain all of that in a minute, and the other one that I'm just going to kind of follow along with, and mostly it's the second reason's fault, to be honest, because it's Knock It Out November. If you guys didn't know, Knock It Out November is going to be hosted by Covers with Cassidy, no surprise, and she decided that in the month of November she was going to make a bunch of goals for herself and just try to knock down all of those books that she's really needed to do for a while and just has been putting off, and I thought that was a great idea and I'm absolutely going to be joining her. Last month was spooky season and I went hard for the spooky, and while I do love me some spooky books, my heart is missing fantasy. So I have like piles sitting around me of books that I want to get to this month, and honestly there are so many more that I want to just pull and get to. Like it's insane the number of books that I want to do this month. So first things first, let's talk about how I did last month. Last month I had 6 rolls for TBR Bluff. The first roll was debut and that was to read Old Country, which I didn't love, but I did it. Then we had a non-Western setting, which was Lighthouse Witches. I'm gonna just take one punishment, even though I didn't do 2 books, simply because those 2 books were for vlogs that I ended up switching out for other things. I didn't read the book, but I read a different book instead. Does that make sense? So it was the same number of books, I just had to switch it out. So I am going to take a punishment for it. Then TBR Vet was Lights of Prague. That's the other one that I did not complete. KU book was Her Soul to Take. I had a good time. That one was 4 stars. Blurbed was Witches of Moonshine Manor, and I think it was blurbed by Lana Harper. And this one I did not love, but I did read, so we can check that off. And then Pet Pick was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Also finished that one, liked, didn't love, but we can check it off. And then I also pulled from my Patreon Witches Cauldron in the month of October, and I got Furies of the Cauldron by Jim Butcher. That was William's pick. I did not get to it in October, so we're rolling it into November. I'm already starting off the month with at least 1 book. That's not including all of my mandatory reads. Mandatory reads wise, we really don't have that many. Stones of Light by Zach Argyle I think is the only like mandatory read that I have, because it is mine and Cassidy's joint Patreon read along. I also have to read The Kraken's Sacrifice by Katie Robert. This is, Ollie, you messed up my camera. Hopefully that angle's about right. This is the second book in A Deal with a Demon, and that is going to be the Late Night Crew officially unofficial book club pick for the month of November. We're really excited to read this one. We had a good time at reading The Dragon's Bride, like it was fun, and we're excited to just have a silly good time with The Kraken's Sacrifice. So 2 mandatory reads in the month of November. Not bad, they're both super short. Kraken's Sacrifice I think I can actually do in like 1 sprint setting. Okay, so the whole point of Knock It Out November is to have a bunch of goals for yourself. I'm going to talk about all of that after the rolls for TBR Bluff, and that way we can talk about the bluff picks that fit into those prompts. And like I said, I'm going to be doing 5 rolls, 4 standard rolls, and I know I've dropped it down recently, but that's just because I do want the opportunity to be able to do some of those mood reading and some of these themed vlogs for you guys, and that's harder to do with tons and tons of book on a mandatory TBR. So I'm going to be doing 4 plus 5 as a punishment. I was only planning to do 4, so it's still a punishment. Let's do TBR Bluff. All right, so TBR Bluff, roll number 1. 3 1s, a 3, and a 6. All right, so I guess I'm going to keep the 3 1s. I'm not really sure how many of these I actually have left, but we're going to try. Roll number 2. Oh no, 2 6s. You know how the game likes repeats. Okay, so I'm not sure how many 6s I actually have left on the board, so I guess let's just re-roll all 3 of these and live on the wild side. Okay, well, that works. We ended up with 2 4s and 3 1s. Okay, so we've got a different angle this month, but I actually think it works better. So this is what the board looks like right now. That is 3 months worth of stuff. So fortunately we do not have to cover up anything else. It'll actually clear at the end of this video, but right now we've got about half the board covered. And I think that that's all of them. I don't think any of the sticky notes have fallen off. So I guess let's see what prompts we're gonna get. Okay, so for our first roll, we got 2 4s and 3 1s. I see a 4 4s. I see 2 4s and a 3. 3 4s. Uh-oh. Wait. Making sure that there's nothing else that would work. Okay, so I see 2 4s and 2 1s. I think we can make that work, and that is an award winner. So for our first roll, we got 2 4s and 3 1s, and that ended up with award winner. And I actually think I'm going to do something that I was not planning to do because I didn't think this prompt was going to come up. But if you don't know, the SPFBO is going on right now, and as of today, we are starting to wrap up all of the finalists for the self-published fantasy blog off. This is hosted by Mark Lawrence. It's an indie awards that happens every year. I'm going to be reading all of the finalists this year, not in the month of November, but I am going to be reading and vlogging my reactions to all of the finalists. And I'm going to use one of the finalists. I feel like they've already kind of been through their own competition because they've been up against 300 books and now we're down to 10. I hope this is allowed. I hope you guys are okay with this. And I'm going to do A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdullah. I am so highly anticipating this book. I cannot wait to read it. That cover is just gorgeous. The sequel's cover was just released and I love it. And I've been wanting to read it for so long and never had an excuse. And I really think that this is that month. This is the month that I'm going to read A Touch of Light. So A Touch of Light is, I think, a world that's starting to tear itself apart. There is a faction that is worshiping life and they lead eternal lives, and death is like a shame and you can't mourn people when they die. It sounds really interesting. I know that it does have griffins because the second cover was just released and it is just a giant griffin on the cover, and I love that. So I'm super excited to get to this one. All right, TBR Bluff roll number 2. 2 6s, 2 5s, and a 1. I don't think I've used a lot of 5s, so I'm actually going to keep those and re-roll these 3. Roll number 2. The 6s just love me. All right, we're going to keep the 3 5s, and we're going to try this one more time. You can't see this one because it's out of frame, but it was a 3, so that is a 4, a 3, and 3 5s. Okay, so for roll number 2, we got 3 5s, a 4, and a 3. So I see 3 5s, that's first person, but let's see, we have to use as many die as possible. I see another 3 5s, that's from a list. How many 3 5s do I have on here? There's Steal a Book, which I may have already used and the book prompt fell off. I can't remember because there's so many crossover prompts and readathons that I've done. Okay, so since there's no other duplicates in the 3 5s, a 4, and a 3, I think my only choice is to use one of the 3 5s, and I actually get to pick which one I want. So I think I am going to go with, Steal a Book because I have a feeling that there are many TBRs that I can probably steal off of this month. Okay, so for roll number 2, we got 3 5s, a 4, and a 3, and that is going to be to Steal a Book. And at the time of filming this, there are not many TBR games out yet. I'm filming this right before the end of the month when a bunch of people are starting to put them up, but they just haven't quite gotten there yet. And the people that I normally gravitate toward to look at their TBR because we read very similarly have not posted theirs yet. So in honor of Knock It Out November, I'm going to call Cassidy and I am going to see if she will tell me one of the books or 2 of the books on her TBR, see if it's in this pile, and if it's not, I'm probably going to grab it anyway and I'm just going to steal it off of her TBR. So let's give her a call. Hi, friend. Are you grocery shopping?
I'm grocery shopping, so you get me in the car now.
Nice, I like it. Okay, so can you tell me a book on your TBR that you think is going to be in this stack? Because I need to steal one.
Okay, the most obvious are either Valor or Stones of Light.
Okay, I can definitely work with that. We can do Valor or Stones of Light because even though Stones of Light is not sitting here, it is on the TBR. So we can make that work. Thank you, friend.
Because I have to.
I was to say, we both have to read that, so that's the obvious choice, but...
Yeah.
And it doesn't spoil your TBR too much.
Yeah.
Alright.
And then I'll know you'll be there for the Buddy Read live show, so...
This is true, I have no choice in that. Okay, enjoy your grocery shopping. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I'm going to be reading Stones of Light. That's going to be the one that I steal off of Cassidy's TBR. This was a selfish move on her part, I feel like, because then she can guarantee that I'm at the live show, even though I did not love Voice of War. But I'm going to be there anyway. We're going to do it. So, Stones of Light, one of my mandatory reads on the TBR. That is a win. TBR Bluff for roll number 3. Oh, that's a lot of 3s. So 3 3s, a 4, and a 2. I'm probably going to regret this because I've already used the 3 3s, but we're going to see if we can get one more. The 6s are killing me. And last roll. Ah! We got another 3, so that's 4 3s and a 6. Okay, and for roll number 3, we got 4 3s and a 6. So I'm assuming it's just going to have to be the 4 3s. Do I even have that left? Uh-oh. Rats. I'm not seeing it. Are you guys seeing it? I'm not seeing it. So I think we're going to have to add a roll. Guess what? I actually overlooked it, and it is continue a series. So we don't have to add an extra roll. By some strength of a miracle, we still have 4 3s on the board, and that's to continue a series. And for roll number 3, we got 4 3s and a 6. This was touch and go for a minute because I was really, really worried this was not going to be on the board, but I ended up finding it. Crisis averted, and it is to continue a series. So there are stacks of books that I can use for this, but I think the one that I'm going to choose, because I'm just desperate to get to it, and that is Blood of the Chosen by Django Wexler. I read Ashes of the Sun earlier this year, absolutely loved it, and in true male fashion, did not continue. So really quick, I'll just tell you what Ashes of the Sun is about. It is following 2 siblings, and one of them was taken away when they were young and taken to the Empire to fight for the Empire. She's going to learn how to use certain powers in order to be a part of like the militant group almost, and because she was taken, the brother has decided that he absolutely hates the Empire and he wants revenge on his sister being taken. So they are on completely opposite sides of this battle. This one is a little bit of a mix of sci-fi and fantasy, although I feel like it leans much more heavily on the fantasy. You can see that underlying sci-fi elements. So I cannot wait to see what happens from where we left off with Blood of the Chosen. Definitely putting Blood of the Chosen on the official TBR. Okay, so TBR Bluff roll number 4. A 2, a 5, a 4, a 3, and a 1. Wow. No duplicates, so I guess I'm just going to re-roll that whole handful. I don't think that's ever happened before. A little bit better that time. 3 4s, a 1, and a 5. So let's do our last roll. The suspense was killing me there. So we have 4 4s and a 5. So for roll number 4, we had 4 4s and a 5. So I'm assuming this is just going to have to be 4 4s if I have them. So I see a couple of 4 4s on here. One of them is chapter titles, and the other one is spooky. And I really feel like I've had some things fall off of this. I mean, I don't have any sticky notes laying on the floor, so I'm not really sure how I would have had stuff fall off, but I'm thinking, I know I've never used chapter titles, so I'm just going to play it safe, and we're going to do chapter titles for the 4 4s and a 5, because, like I said, I know I've never done that one before. And then for roll number 4, we got 4 4s and a 5, and that is a book with chapter titles. So I'm about to go through this stack, and we're going to see what actually has chapter titles. Okay, so we have 2 options here. One is a honker, and that is Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. This is the sequel to Of Blood and Fire that I've been really wanting to read, but this is a literal brick. Like, it is a brick. I can look at it and see that it's at least 850 pages long. Brick. But I really want to read it. And then a different option, and that's going to be catching up on a series, although I think the 3rd book in the series comes out December or January. And then the 3rd option is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. This one, it looks like it has chapter titles to me. Oh, crap. I don't think it's chapter titles. I think it's telling you about the different time periods that this takes place in. So I guess I can't do this one because it has to have chapter titles. So we're reading the brick. We're doing it. We're going to do Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. The brick is on. So if you're not sure what this series is about, it is a very classic fantasy about Kalen, who is just living in this town. He's enjoying life. He has a girl that he likes. He's got his good friends, and they're going to set off on this quest to do this hunt. They're going to bring back a large beast, but when they get back from this hunt, there are people there that they don't need to mess with, and they end up having to escape. There are dragons, there are giants, there is a war and some ancient history behind why the dragons have disappeared. Are the dragons really gone? You tell me. So this is a very chosen one boy and his dragon kind of story, but I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't love it. It did have first book syndrome, but the writing style just really seemed to amp up a pretty good bit in the very end of Darkness and Light. We're gonna do it, even though it's 850 pages long. Fingers crossed it's a quick read. I need to get to it. Okay, and because we have to do a punishment roll, this is gonna be roll number 5. 2 5s, a 2, a 3, and a 6. I guess I'll keep the 2 5s maybe? Another 5. And one last time. A 1 and a 4. And because I didn't finish my TBR last month, we have to do 5 rolls. And for roll number 5, we got 3 5s, a 1, and a 4. So probably gonna have to be 3 5s if it's still here. I see 3 6s. 3 5s, I found one. It is from a list. And this is the second time that I've had to use 3 5s, so super fortunate. We cut it really, really close with this one, guys. Really, really close. But our final prompt is from a list. Okay, and then roll number 5, and our last roll was 3 5s and a 4. And this one ended up being from a list, which is beautiful because before we started this video, I created a list of all of my November goals and books that I wanted to read. So I'm honestly just going to use this list because I desperately need to. And we'll talk about my November goals in a second, but one that is on the list that I really, really need to get to is The Enclaves by Naomi Novik, and that is going to complete a series for me. I've actually got the audiobook already checked out and ready to go from the library. This is the 3rd book in the Scholomance series, which started with A Deadly Education. And while I really don't love the writing style of this series, I really like the idea. It's about Elle, magically gifted, and they can't live in the real world because there are these beasts that are drawn to magic, and unless they get trained on how to kind of fight all of that off and deal with their powers, then they're gonna get eaten when they go out. Basically, the entire school is trying to eat them, and they have no teachers. It's just things plop down in front of them that they need to learn, and they have to try to battle monsters all at the same time. But the core of the first book is that Elle's just trying to make friends. She's very standoffish. Nobody likes her. She doesn't like anybody, and she's just attempting to make friends without actually attempting to make friends. But the idea behind Killer School, super interesting. I just wish that the execution was a little less stream of consciousness, but still enough that I have a pretty good time with them, and I have to do them on audio. So I've got to do this before the audiobook goes back to the library. So that's TBR Bluff, but we're not done yet. Let's talk about the 2 readathons a little more in depth that I'm thinking about kind of sort of participating in the month of November. For the first one that I'm going to be really loosely just kind of following along with, that's Once Upon a Readathon. And that is hosted by Hannah Blackwell. She is a little bit of everything booktuber. This is a really big readathon based off of kind of fairy tales. There are a ton of hosts, a ton of different teams. She really put together an interesting story for it. So I'm not really going to pick a team because I'm participating way too loosely to bring anybody down, but I did want to tell you guys about it and let you know. So again, all linked down in the description box. Then the one that I'm going to be truly hard participating in, and that's because it has no prompts or I make my own, so easy, is Knock It Out November. So let's talk about the goals that I have for Knock It Out November. The way that Cassidy is going to do this is for every goal that she hits, she's going to buy a book. I have 6 goals. So what I'm thinking is if I complete all 6, I can buy a book, and then for any extra goal that I complete twice, then I can buy an extra book. I think that's reasonable without me going just completely buck wild on buying books. So the first goal is to continue a series. I feel like that's a pretty standard rule, I don't finish series, so this is the time that I need to finish series. And in that same vein, I also want to complete a series. So there are a couple of these that are either the last book that's currently published, or maybe they're just continuations and I just haven't read them yet. Completing a series is going to be literally those final books. So I've actually at least 4 final books in this stack, so I should not have a problem with that. And then mood read a book. So I never mood read. I have like goals and things that I'm going to be doing, and I never mood read ever. So definitely going to try to get some mood reading in, and to read an arc. So I've got several arcs that are just kind of floating out in La La Land that I definitely want to read, and I need to get on those. Read a TBR vet. So for this one, I'm including TBR vet as anything that's been on my TBR for more than like 6 months, because if I don't get to it pretty quickly or it's not for something, it does tend to kind of go on the TBR to die. So if it's not something that I've hauled pretty recently, I'm going to consider it a vet for this. And then read a book that you've anticipated but haven't gotten to yet. That's a lot of the books in this stack, so that should be fine. So those are all 6 of my goals, I think, for the month of November. I didn't do anything super complicated or go crazy with these because I wanted it to be very achievable and not a chore. I wanted it to be something I wanted to do. So I think that this is something that is very manageable for me. Let's talk about my list of potentials and the things that I really want to read. The first one is the Enclaves. We got that on here, so that solves that problem. It is also going to complete a series, so we can check that off the list. And then I have Godbreaker by Mike Brooks. This is the final book in the Black Coast series, and I really enjoyed Black Coast when I read it earlier this year. I did not love The Splinter King, but that's okay. I'm still highly anticipating the finale, so this is the last one. It will complete a series. This series is a little complicated, but it follows a very intricate world. This first one is on the Black Coast. I do think that it makes more sense for me to just read the back because I can get really complicated with this synopsis really quick. So this is about war dragons, fearsome raiders, and a demonic warlord on the rise, even though not yet we haven't seen much of the demonic warlord. When the citizens of Black Keep see ships on the horizon, terror takes them because they know where it's coming. For generations, the Keep has been raided by fearsome clanspeople, and when they saddle their war dragons, so these are dragons that are on land, so I think like velociraptors in my head, the warriors rush to defend their home only to discover that they've not come to pillage at all. Driven from their own land, from a demonic warlord who prophesies the end of the world, the raiders come in search of a new home. There's a lot of culture in these books that I really appreciate, and I'm excited to finally finish off this series. This cover is not what I expected, but it's growing on me, and I love that we have a dragon on the rise. Then one that I really do want to get to, because if I don't read it now, I never will, and that is The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. This is the sequel to The Atlas 6. It follows 6 magical people that are tasked to see if they want to come into the Alexandrian Society, but only 5 of them are actually going to be inducted out of the 6, and they are kind of learning to hone their magical powers. There's a lot of prestige. It is a very snotty type of story, but the way that it ended I really enjoyed, and I'm super curious to see how the second book kind of amps that up, especially when this one was picked up by Tor and edited as a primary published work rather than a self-published work, if that makes sense. So super interested to get to this one, and if I don't do it now, I never will. Blood of the Chosen, obviously on this list, so we can already knock that off. Stones of Light, already on this list, so we can knock that off. I do need to read Furies of the Cauldron by Jim Butcher, which was William's pick from the Witch's Brew mug. That one I don't know a ton about. I know it's the first in the Codex Alera series, and both William and Emma have really recommended this one over and over again, so I'm curious to see what all of the buzz is about. I do enjoy Jim Butcher's Dresden Files series, so I'm excited to see his more like fantasy type of book. So this is about a world where the fate of the realm rests on the shoulders of a young boy with no power to call his own. For thousands of years, the people of Alera have united against an aggressive, threatening race that are inhabiting the world, using their unique bonds with Furies, which are elementals, But the remote Cauldron Valley, the boy Tavi has struggled with his lack of fury crafting. At 15, he has no wind fury to help him fly, no fire fury to help light lamps, yet the most savage enemy returns to the valley, and his courage and resourcefulness will be a greater power than any fury, and one that could turn the tides of war. So, interesting. Sounds like a typical fantasy type book, but I'm totally okay with that, and I've heard the series just gets better as you go along, so I'm excited for it. Then also on my list is the sequel to A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the prequel series to the From Blood and Ash series. And for some reason, I've managed to keep up with these as they come out. And I know that if I don't continue to do that, I will never pick up one ever again. I don't know why that is. And I did like this prequel a little bit better than the last like 2 or so of the From Blood and Fire series. But if I don't keep up like as they're actually coming out, never gonna happen. I think the second one the sequel to this comes out in November, like mid-November, so it'll just kind of depend on if I have time to read it once it's physically out. This one is the prequel that is following the Primals and the maiden that marries the Primal of Death. So you do kind of have to wait and read this one after book 3 of the other series. It's weird the way that she's done the prequels, but this is actually like book 4 and book 1 all at the same time. So I will be reading essentially book 6 in this series. So we'll see. We'll see if I manage to actually get to it, but I would like to. And that one is going to continue a series as well. And then we have an indie that I have been putting off, and that's actually another goal that I forgot to mention is I wanted to read an indie. So there's actually 7 goals, in which case I think I am going to revise what I said earlier, and if I complete 5, then I'm able to buy a book, and then anything on top of that, I'll buy an extra book since I have 7. That just seems like a round number. Anyway, indie goes on the list. So Illborn. Illborn is a book that Cassidy and Rachel both really, really loved when they read it earlier this year. I've read the prequel, or not the prequel, I've read the prologue of this at Cassidy's insistence and really enjoyed it. So I'm very excited to continue. I think this is a very religion-heavy fantasy. The second cover just came out as well, and I think it comes out sometime early next year. It says, long ago, the Lord emerged from the deserts of the Holy Land, possessed with divine powers. He used these to forcibly unite the peoples of Angelfall before his ascension to heaven. Interesting. So I'm ready for this one. It's much floppier than I thought, but it has itty bitty print and the super white pages, but it's not on KU. So we're gonna read it finally. I desperately need to get to this. And then last but not least, I've been saving the best for last. I am going to be reading the entire Faithful in the Fallen series. So if you guys can see any of my like profile pictures, you will know that I am holding Malice in that. Really enjoyed this book when I read it, and I have put Valor on every TBR ever, and just I've been putting it off because I'm scared of it. I'm scared of the pain, and I'm also scared what if I don't like it as much as the first book. I don't know, but it's time. And the beauty in all of this is I'm going to tell you, because out of my mouth to your ears, it must happen. I'm going to be spoiler vlogging this whole series. So I'm going to reread Malice with spoilers, and then I am going to read for the first time and do a spoiler vlog for the rest of the series. I'm so excited to do this and to give you guys all of my thoughts, but I'm scared. So you're going to hold me to it, and it's going to come out at the beginning of December, and we're all going to be happy, right? Okay. So Malice is a high fantasy that does have some classic fantasy tropes. We're following Corbin, who is a young boy that lives just in this kingdom. He is the son of the blacksmith, I believe, and he wants to be a warrior, but you can't sit to be part of the Knights and the Warriors until you're like 15, and I think he's 14 maybe at the beginning of this series. And then we also had Envis, who is very greedy with power, and he is like an advisor to, I believe he's an advisor to the king. We have Viridis, who is a new part of the warband for the High Prince, and he's a very skilled swordsman, just trying to prove himself. We also have Nathir, who is a prince that thinks he's doing good, but doesn't always have the intent that he means. And we've got a prophecy about a good and an evil force that are going to collide and come together. I do think this is going to get a lot more political and a lot more militant as we go along, and that synopsis is just barely scratching the surface of what is in Malice, and I'm so excited to give it a reread, and I hope it enjoy it as much the second time as the first time. So I feel like that's enough books for my like official TBR, but of course I'm not done. I'm actually going to add 4 more. So editing mail coming in really quickly here to tell you that of course I forgot books. Like I can't do this TBR and not have forgotten books. So the first one is Babylon's Ashes by James S.A. Corey. This is the 6th book in the Expanse series. Buddy reading it with Dad and Rachel. Got to read that, so that is a definite. And then also wanted to mention that I did not give you guys any arcs that I could be reading. So just a couple that I might consider, and I'm not going to give you much of synopses for these. I could do Emperor of Ruin, which is the 3rd in the Ashes of the Sun Burning Blade series. That one's definitely high up there. Sign Here by Claudia Lux, I got an arc of, even though it's already out yet. A couple that come out in January, The Stars Undying was one I got from Orbit by Emery Robin. I also have The Adventures of Amina Al-Safari, which is the new S.A. Chakraborty that comes out in March. Do I need to read that right now? No. Could I anyway? Possibly. So there are a bunch that I may be getting to. I've got a list of arcs and I'll just pull from whatever I'm in the mood for, which will also cross off a mood read. So I'm gonna go back to editing this video, but just wanted to let you guys know that of course the TBR had to grow. I'm not gonna give you a lot of in-depth synopses to these because I feel like this video is way too long as it is. I would love to finish the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence. I would also love to read Prince of Thorns, which is the first book in his other series, but we'll see. I also need to finish the very last book in the Bargainer series. Started this forever and 100 years ago and then just for some reason never finished it. So really do need to complete that. Mood reading wise, either one of these would work, and that is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan or The Blade of Faith by David DeGlish. I could also mood read and do another Django Wexler with 1,000 Names. Super excited to read this one. I've got A Shadow in the Summer by Daniel Abram, which Rachel really enjoys, so I'm interested to give this one a go. This is the Long Prince Quartet, which I know Maria did not love, but Maria's a little more character driven than I am, so perhaps I will enjoy it. We also have one that I just picked up on a whim, and that is The Notorious Sorcerer by Davina Evans. This one sounds good. It's a dazzling fantasy with magic, sword fighting, gangs, and malevolent harpies and alchemists. Then we have Spine of the Dragon, which as always Rachel describes much better than me. Political dragon book with empires comparing eggplants while the world ends. So I just bought the audiobook for this one, so definitely a maybe. I also just picked up the sequel. I could do the sequel to The Swordsman's Lament. This is also an indie, so this would fit on the indie goal. I could even start A Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward. I've had this one on my TBR forever and been wanting to read it. Probably not, but maybe. And then I could do Memory of Souls by Jen Lyons. This is to continue a series because it is the 3rd in the Chorus of the Dragon series. And I think that's enough books. I mean, like 22, 23 that I have mentioned. And I mean, we're not talking short. I have nothing to say for myself. Actually, 24, I forgot one. 25, I forgot another one. I have nothing to say for myself. Like, I don't know. Cassidy, this is all of your fault. All your fault. It's not mine. It's not my fault. It's not even TBR Bluff's fault. I'm just kidding. I'm super excited to get to all of these books. Hopefully there's something in this stack that you're excited to see me read. Let me know what you think I should prioritize down in the description below, because I'm going to need help prioritizing all of this because I'm so excited to read every single one of these. This is a TBR that I'm just like giddy to start, and I haven't had that feeling in a long time. So I'm hoping for some 5-star reads. I'm hoping for some just the feels from excitement to read again. So let me know what I should prioritize down in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm looking at my timestamp and it's been 41 minutes and that doesn't include the rolls. So I'm gonna zip it now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to spend a little bit more time with me, as always, the links to the Monster Mash, my Patreon, is down below, as well as links to Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give it a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!